anyone needs anything. And if you need anything during it and you're not sure of something, you're welcome to come up and just tap me and I'll step back and answer any questions that you might have too.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Right along. If you go out,
If you need anything during it, you're
okay, we're live. All right, we are live. We will go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to do is a quick roll call and welcome. To start the roll call, I'll start here and then I'll pass to Scott and we'll go around. My name is Grant Yoder. I am the chair of the Assistant Police Review Board.
Scott McLean, alternate member of the Police Review Board.
Jeff Jorgensen, member of the Police Review Board.
Colleen Coleman, member of the Police Review Board.
Zane Goldberg, member of the Police Review Board. We do have a couple more members who have indicated they may be here tonight, so that they join us throughout the night. We'll have them sneak in and join us here. I want to start by reading the purpose of our board. The mission of the Community Police Review Board is to provide Salem community with an objective, unbiased, citizen-based, accessible process for the review of complaints against the police department and police officers, and to provide Salem community with information regarding the accountability of the police department in a way that builds trust and enhances communication between police and all members of the community. To this end, the board advocates for fairness, respect for all individuals, accountability of public employees, equal access to the forum, and open communication with concerns. In a minute, I'll actually start the hearing itself, but the basics are, we'll start by hearing testimonies. We'll have a brief session executively, and then the result of the hearing will either be to concur with or to not concur with the findings of the original complaint. And then we could make recommendations to the chief of police and the city manager as a result of that concurrence or non-concurrence. So we will now call to order the Community Police Board hearing on April 14th at 6:08 p.m. The purpose of this hearing is to review the complaint initially filed with the Salem Police Department as Internal Affairs case 250092. Is the complainant present? Thank you. Part of the mission of the Community Police Board is to provide an objective, community-based, accessible process to review the complaints involving police departments. The board serves in an advisory role to the city manager and to the city of Salem and reports its findings from the review of unresolved complaints to the city manager. The board may also make recommendations to the city manager for remediation, request the city manager to employ an independent investigator or auditor in appropriate circumstances, and refer to the city manager concerns or questions about the police department's policies, procedures, complaint history, or training history. The recommendations of the board are non-binding. The final decision pertaining to the disciplinary matters are responsible for the operation of direction of the police department remains with the city manager, the chief of police, and the police management team. The purpose of this hearing is to receive statements and testimony, to review evidence that will aid the board in its deliberations in reporting the board's findings and recommendations to the manager. The board shall receive testimonies from both parties. The board, individual board members may ask questions of witnesses. Only board members may ask questions of witnesses. After hearing statements from both parties, all witnesses, the board will deliberate its determination in a closed executive session. The board is limited to deciding whether it concurs with the police department's internal investigations of the issue or whether it disagrees with the department's finding. After making the determination, the board will then reconvene to announce findings publicly. The board's findings shall be determined by majority vote of 5 or more members. The board is required to produce an initial report within 30 days of the hearing, which will be reviewed by the chief of police. Unless additional review is needed, that report shall become final 30 days after the initial report is produced. The final report will be provided to the complainant, the officers involved, and the city council. The final report will also be presented at the board's next meeting. The complainant will be notified when the final report will be read and may attend that meeting, in which the report will be presented, though no comment will be allowed in the complainant's review, and no formal appeal process exists for this board. The hearing is to be conducted in an informal, non-confrontational manner, free of harassment, coercion, intimidation, or undue interruption. The board reserves its right to remove any participant who fails to exercise restraint or respect, becomes hostile or disorderly, or creates a hostile environment. The board may also postpone or cancel the hearing if participants fail to exhibit orderly and respectful conduct. Statements of the complainant and the witness are voluntary. The board will listen to the statements that bear upon the complainant, which the board is considering. If they are material, substantive, and new, if any material, any substantive new information given that was not evaluated by the department, investigation shall be referred to the police department for further investigation. In the event of such new information, the board may elect to continue or postpone the hearing. Prior to receiving any testimony, we'll go around the room, have parties in attendance introduce themselves and state their relationship to the case. I'll do that specifically for people who are coming in to speak, not for everyone. My name is Grant Yoder. I am the Community Police Board, the chair of the Community Police Board. Let's see. I think I have a summary, Gretchen.
Yeah. I think that's probably okay.
All right,
Everyone's
excellent.
the material. Yeah.
So the first to present, the police, I believe. Nope, I'm sorry, actually, the complaint, sorry, I'm following through this. If we had other witnesses, we include them. We don't have actually the witnesses from the police office. We just have the statement from the police office. So I will invite whoever would like to be the witness.
Actually, can we start with Ms. Luna? Yeah, we start with Ms. Luna and then go to her witness. Forgive
Just
me.
you have someone you said that was reading on your behalf, or we use?
She just wanted me to read some bullet points that she could speak on.
Forgive me.
Yes.
Forgive me. I missed that. Yes.
If I'm able to read off
That-
what she wants. me to,
that's
she
fine.
could speak on.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll let you appear. We get another chair.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. I'm sorry, with Ms. Luna.
Yes, I'm David Luna's mom. Nice to meet you, Grant.
What was your name?
Mary Garza, I'm David Dennis. Yeah.
Mary Garza, thank you for coming. Ms. Luna, do you agree that your statements will be true and honest?
Yes.
Excellent. Ms. Garza, do you agree that your statements will be true and honest?
Yes.
All right, you guys may proceed with your testimony. After your testimony, we'll have a chance to ask.
So the reason for my complaint was because the police had said there was no probable cause for an arrest or a ticket or anything for the other party that hit my son. And so these are the findings that we found that were probable cause that should have been probable cause that wasn't. So we haven't. Did you get them? Yeah, they're all right there. If you guys wanted to look where we're looking,
Many copies, so I don't know if.
kind of like
Thank you. Want to share with me?
Yeah. been there.
Thank you.
There's that. So these are the findings that we.
So, one of the bullet points was the driver of the Mercedes was on scene and identified himself as Hunter Dylan Klein. Hunter appeared upset and crying. Hunter immediately stated he was going approximately 70 to 75 miles per hour westbound on Keebler. The officer clarified with Hunter if he was going 70 to 75 miles per hour, and he said yes.
Going and then. Yeah, well, also the,
A witness on the scene, her name was Nevaeh Music. She stated when the Mercedes crashed into the Honda, she saw the Honda get ripped open and dragged westbound on Keebler Boulevard. Another witness on scene, her name was Rochelle. She stated the Mercedes sped past her and remained about 2 to 3 cars lengths in front of her. She had observed the Honda slowly moving eastbound.
and so also there was a it should be in there, the 911 call. Couple of pages back. If you go a couple of pages back, there's also the 911 call people. There was no. Should be another one. Well, maybe you guys have it. Sorry. Okay, right here. So it's gonna be this one page,
It's
it should have 911 on top. Sorry, there's.
Thank you. Perfect. All right.
Doctor. What's a doctor?
Let's make sure.
No, for now.
There was a 911 call that was made by one of the witnesses, Rochelle Rogers, had said that before the accident happened, that she witnessed the Mercedes driving erratically. And it should be right there. Reckless driving, okay, so just read that, listening back at, and then one of the, so they wrote, listening back to the,
I'm just listening back,
to the,
to the call. Nevaeh said that the, Hunter was going eastbound on Keebler, was speeding and driving erratically.
that was the 911 call.
Hunter. Erratically. Oh, and then David Luna pulled out in front of Hunter and then David Luna flipped and fully turned.
But I don't know. Okay. Sorry, so the driver that would then leave it, okay, so she. So here's the, on this page right here, if you see, it says, the 911 call. Kubler speeding and driving erratically, that was from one of the witnesses before the accident happened. So, and they did totally disregard that part, and for me, I feel like that is part of what calls already, just because of the 911 call that was made prior to my son getting killed. And so, that was one of the points that we saw on there that should have been, and there's also, oh, and then the next one was,
That phone call was also compared to the phone call from when David's crash happened, and it was the same phone number. It was the same witness that confirmed that Hunter was driving erratically. And then that's when crash happened.
yeah, she was scared for her life, she said, and her son's life. So that was that. And then what else did we have that we saw? Drug test, the test that he admitted that he had smoked flower 24 hours prior to the accident. But there was no drug test done on him. There was one done on my son, but not on him. And so that was one of my concerns, that why wasn't he drug tested? This was a fatal car accident. He took somebody's life and he admitted to doing drugs, you know? I mean, nobody's gonna say, oh, I just was smoking weed and I, when they're driving and kill somebody, they're not gonna admit that. Obviously, we know he does drugs because he admitted it to an officer. So that wasn't one of my other concerns. Why that wasn't looked at and why he wasn't drug tested. And also another thing was that he told a witness, if you see right here, it says that he told Nevaeh that he was speeding going 75 to 79 miles an hour. That was another person that he confirmed his speed with. And then it says right here, see, as noted below, Hunter later contradict his speed after speaking with his father and said he was going 50 miles an hour. But you see by the picture over there, that's no 50 mile an hour hit. I mean, so that was one of my.
And that speed was the one that was given as the final answer instead of the one that he stated that he was going to the witness,
To the
police officer.
Yeah, it's all. So, what other concerns?
Another concern we had was the crash happened around 11 p.m. I was on the scene that night around 2 a.m. Police officers had informed David's girlfriend at the time not to informed the family members of the accident. But Hunter Quinn's father was able to be on scene and questioning and talking to the witnesses. And that was right after the crash happened. The only reason why I was there was because they needed to get a family there on scene since David was in the car for about 4 hours.
4 hours before they even got to me. And the other thing was. Yeah, the fact that when he was able to, they asked him, you know, if we can search and he said no, that he wasn't gonna give consent for a search. I don't understand why that was even, he was able to decide that, you know, this is a fatal car accident, he should not be able to decide that. It should be mandatory, you know, like in this type of situation. But he denied consent of his black box, denied consent of search of his vehicle, and that was just okay. They just let that go, like it's fine, you know? That was another thing that really was disturbing to me. And you're not going that he had. Okay, that was when we were discussing smoking of marijuana and still didn't get a drug test. What else? No. We thought we had it.
You're all right.
Pretty much that.
Also, when we spoke with the DA's office, we were informed that after the accident, police officers had went to nearby companies like Starbucks, Chick-fil-A and whatnot, because apparently the cameras at that time weren't working at that intersection. They had informed us that they had did their due diligence by going to ask for the footage, but they couldn't retrieve any. My sister, Valerie Luna, had ended up going back to those companies and asking if they had any footage, because by this time it was already 2 weeks, asked if anybody had came to grab footage, and not one of them was contacted for that footage.
And I spoke with Robert, he's the clinic that's right there. He said that his camera would have captured the intersection right there, but it was already too late to get it because it deletes after 7 days.
And
Officers didn't go and ask for it or anything, you know, because he told me that nobody went, and so that was really disturbing as well. Why that wasn't done, but it was said it was done.
And we also because we just want a full answer, we also want to know why body cams were denied to us and we're not able to see that footage to give us a clear mind of what really happened that night, because there was not a proper investigation that happened that night.
Well, there wasn't. They closed the case. I don't even. They just closed it right away. They said they had no probable cause for any crime that was done. Reckless driving is what I see a lot, just, right there, black and white, like,
Just looking for answers.
yeah, just want answers. I didn't get no answer from them at all, so
They kind of
they
just
blew us off, is what they did.
as a case closed.
So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. I get him out. Share.
Thank you.
Here in a moment, we'll have a chance to ask you a couple questions, the board member has any. Do you want to see, I believe we may have a board member join online. Kelly, I hear you may be online, is that correct?
Kelly, are you hearing us? Okay.
She's on her phone, so it may be difficult for her to.
If you do hear us and are present, please feel free to chime in. We'll be happy to hear from you. So, excellent. Board, do you guys have questions for Ms. Linda?
I have one clarifying question. I want to start by saying I'm deeply sorry for your loss. It's a horrible thing to experience. I'm curious, I'm trying to piece together here.
Yeah.
The timeline. From what point did the accident happen? Did the police then determine they weren't going to move forward with any charges against the other driver? Do you recall roughly the timeline for that? It was the same day.
You know who it was that told you that they contacted the businesses for their camera feeds?
It was. Is it called back hopefully? Dr. Coy. I mean, Officer. Officer. Yeah. Mhm.
Get the board coming in, let's see if they have more questions. I think that one of the other documents that we got, maybe just an initial report on like a blue sheet, maybe suggested that you had hired a private investigator.
I did.
Okay.
She wasn't no help for me, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions to the board? For any of y'all that will speak to this Nevaeh?
Yes, I do have her witness. Well, my investigator did. And I have spoken with her, yes, and met with her and all that, but apparently she forgot about this meeting, so she took a shift and wasn't able to be here, so.
When you filed your complaint with the department, what was the resolution you were looking for? Was it to be reopened or to get more information about why it was closed?
I wanted just information of why they closed it so fast.
They'll just take a couple minutes. Again, just finish.
If you need a library card, please go to the nearest. Please visit again during our regular business. Thank you. Buenas tardes, les queremos recordar que la biblioteca va a cerrar en 30 minutos. Si gustaría tomar materiales prestados, por favor diríjase al escritorio de servicio o a las estaciones de autoservicio. Si necesita abrir una cuenta nueva, por favor diríjase al escritorio de servicio aún. Visítenos nuevamente durante nuestro horario regular. Gracias.
Go ahead.
Tell me.
Yeah, my question was, when you reached out to the department and began the initial complaint, what was the resolution you were looking for? To reopen or to get more information?
I was hoping that they can reopen it, I just wanted them to investigate, like they didn't do a proper investigation. So I wasn't happy with that, you know what I mean? This is my son's life. Like, this is a person's life on his way to work, you know? And nothing was done, not even a speeding ticket, nothing. Literally nothing. The same night, closed case. Like, I didn't understand. I just wanted to understand. I had lots of questions, and that's pretty much what I was looking for. Just
Lots of questions like, when it says that a light pulse still when they went up to his car.
EMT felt a pulse on him, but no medical attention was given to him. Like, they didn't even try. Like, I can see if this was a horrible accident by the look of it. His pictures, I mean, but if he would have been taken in an ambulance and died out, I mean, that, like at least they tried, but no, they didn't. They left him there for hours. They waited for PGE to come. That told them that they were gonna be a minute, that it was gonna be a while before they got there, and they just let him there,
And
even with the pulse.
the main investigator went.
And the investigator left, the main one left the scene, said, call me when they get here. That's all, like. That's what I don't understand, and
They try to blame the longevity of it, due to his car being so close to the transporter, right? Yes. But there was already a lot of people that had already gone to the car that tried to help him. So there was no issue with any electrical. There was no electrical issues at that point, and he was there for about 4 hours. And the excuse was just waiting on PG&E.
Two more questions to the board. Fine, those are all my questions. Thank you. And thank you all for coming to support.
thank you.
So while you head back to your seat, the police have their presentation now about the process. After they present, while they present, we'll have a chance to ask some questions too, but only the board has an opportunity to ask questions. Then afterwards, we'll go into how
Sit here, so.
No, whatever
Yeah.
you want.
Feel weary.
Thank you. Will you share your name?
Yeah, so my name is Steve Galvin. I'm the lieutenant of the Salem Police Department. And I supervise the professional standards unit and also the personnel and training unit. So professional standards unit is the unit that receives complaints and investigates.
Lieutenant Galvin, do you agree that your statements will be true and honest? Thank you. You may proceed.
All right, so I have a few slides and then I have quite a few things that I would like to just discuss and questions that were submitted. So this is a professional standards investigation. That is the case number that was assigned to it. Slide. This was the complaint that we received that on April 11th, 2024, Miss Luna's son was in a car crash. It was alleged that the officers did not properly investigate the crash, failing to review all evidence, write warrants, or arrest the involved driver. So we can go to the next slide. Within that, the policy that would be covered under the police policy is policy 600, investigation and prosecution, where it says it is the policy of the police department to investigate crimes thoroughly with due diligence and to evaluate and prepare criminal cases for appropriate clearance or submission to a prosecutor. So those would be the lens that I'm looking at this as the supervisor that is reviewing this internal affairs investigation, professional standards investigation. And this would be potentially the policy that would be violated, and based on the allegation, this is the policy that we found. You can go to the next slide. So this is some of the action that was taken by the professional standards unit. They reviewed all reports and evidence. They confirmed the entire case was sent to the DA's office for review and no charges were filed. They also confirmed that the investigative steps were not swayed by any conflicts of interest. I'll speak to that more in a little bit. And requested additional evidence from Ms. Luna if she could provide, and then also ensured that all questions posed by the complainant, Ms. Luna, were answered. And that's the list that I will go off of here in a little bit. So my action as the reviewing lieutenant, I reviewed the investigation to ensure for its completeness. And I reviewed all the reports, sought out answers based on Ms. Luna's specific questions. I also spoke with the traffic control team supervisor regarding some additional questions, and I too checked the areas for cameras. And then I'll just go down. So initially on the complaint, and I believe the board was provided a list of questions that Ms. Luna submitted to professional standards unit. And I'd like to just go through every one of those questions and just answer those questions based on what the investigation found and then also what I also found and some questions that I have. So the first one, why did you drug test David? And this is under medical examiner questions. And this is speculation that it was most likely the medical examiner's office that requested the drug test. And when I was looking into the investigation, I actually learned that is protocol now for any death, the legal death examiner that comes out reviews and also does a drug test. That is standard practice at this point. And I didn't know that at the time. Why didn't they tell us about the drug use or the drug test in the bag in his wallet? So again, this is speculation, but the only thing I could find in the police reports is that the police looked into Mr. Luna's wallet for his identification card, but then that was the only documentation that I found looking into the wallet. So I don't really know about that. That might be part of the enemy's protocol. I don't know. Why does the document say the cause of death was head and neck injury, but the examination stated there is no injury to either his neck or head? And again, this is speculation, is most likely from the enemy's office. But there could be internal injury with no visible external injury. But I don't know that for a fact. That would be a medical examiner question. The next one, the EMT said they felt a slight pulse, but another document said no one could get close to him because of the electrical box. So how was the EMT able to check for pulse? Also, that personnel said he died instantly. How did you die instantly if you got a pulse? And this was a really good question. I mean, all these questions are really good, but when I reviewed the body worn camera, and I don't know why you would deny the body worn camera. That's the first I heard about it. So I can look into that. But there's, sorry, side tangent to the board. There are specific criteria that body worn cameras are released and are not released. I didn't know that it was never released. I don't know the reason behind that. So, but when I looked at the body worn camera, the first on scene were the medics. The EMTs were already there and they were already at the car. And based on looking at the reports and the body worn cameras, they eventually were able to open the door and check. It looks like they were reaching in and checking for Mr. Luna's pulse. And at that point in time, it appears that's when they called him as deceased. And then things slowed down because also there was gasoline all over the scene. And then it was also on the electrical box. So there were safety concerns with that. But initially, the first people on scene were the medics, the fire department, and the first officer on scene, their body worn, just showed them at the door trying to render aid. No alcohol in the other driver's system, but what about other drugs? So based on the investigation, there were no signs of impairment. So the officer could not further investigate that portion. There was probable, or there has to be probable cause to ask for a warrant or submit for a warrant for a drug test. And additionally, the hospital told the investigators that there was no alcohol in the driver's system, which from my experience, if there's a significant crash, the hospital does automatically take blood draws if it's medically necessary. And if there is alcohol in the system related to a crash, they have to tell the police. And they told the police that there is no alcohol in the system. The next part were the witness statements. Why is 911 call made by the witness about reckless driver not seen as probable cause against Hunter? When I reviewed the CAD, this was also stated in the reports. The original call came on 10:46 hours, and the second call from the witness was at 10:47 hours in the evening. And this concern, when I was reviewing the traffic team reports, the supervisor actually noticed that in the CAD as well and directed one of the employees or one of the investigators to go speak to that person specifically about that their statement, and that was the witness statement that you mentioned. And when she was interviewed, she explained the vehicle passed her going west on I-5 or over the I-5 overpass on Krugler, and then it maintained 2 to 3 car lengths ahead of her. And she said they were going about 45 or 50 miles an hour. The driver first told another witness and the police officer at the scene that he was driving 75 to 79 miles per hour before the crash. And he confirmed this twice, but later he changed the story and said he was only going 50 miles an hour. Why did you believe the second statement when he already confirmed the first one twice? So yeah, I did hear the initial statements of him saying that he was going 75 to 79 miles an hour. That was on the body worn camera. It was documented in the police reports. And in reviewing the police reports, and I guess as the independent like supervisor looking over this investigation, I know officers are trained in like traumatic incidents. This is clearly a traumatic incident, and part of that training the officers receive, and it's a lot of the time seen in domestic violences where the initial reaction is a lot of the times the mind just doing what the mind is going to do. It's traumatic. So a lot of times with domestic violence victims, if you wait a little bit longer as their adrenaline decreases, then the statements are a little bit more easier to follow. So when I looked at the video and the police reports, the driver was visibly shaking. That was documented in the police report. The other witness had to tell the driver to sit down several times. Even the driver said when he was interviewed that he was hysterical and sobbing uncontrollably right after the crash. So as I was reviewing it, that kind of led to what we would consider maybe an excited utterance. So at the hospital, he did tell investigators that he was going 50 miles an hour, which was consistent with the independent witness that was traveling behind him. He said that they were traveling about 50 miles an hour. So Wyatt's Hunter stating he smoked marijuana 24 hours prior to the not probable cause. So there still needs to be signs of impairment at the time of the driving, at the time of the crash. And the standards that the police have to show is that at the time of the crash, there was impairment.
You can have it on video.
Please start checking your items. The nearest service center for self-check. If you need a library card, please go to the nearest service. Please visit again during our regular business hours. Buenas tardes. Quisiéramos recordar que la biblioteca va a cerrar en 15 minutos. Si estaría tomando entregas en espacios, por favor diríjase a las instituciones de servicio y a las instituciones de auxilio. Nuestro equipamiento código de servicio ahora. Visítenos nuevamente durante nuestro horario regular.
You mind if we? Let's see what we can. I think we can probably do 15. Yeah,
So some of those signs of impairment would be red, watery, glassy eyes, maybe slurred or thick tongue speech, imbalancing or divided attention issues. And the officer or the investigator is at the hospital talking to the other driver. He's actually what's considered a drug recognition expert. And he was looking for all of those signs as he was speaking to the other driver. And the police negligence. Why did the police say they went to get surveillance footage from the nearby buildings? But when I checked, a Starbucks manager said no police ever came for the footage. Another nearby place told me their footage gets erased after 7 days. So that means the police didn't come within the time as they claimed. Why did they lie about that? So when I reviewed the reports, it does state that they checked the possible surveillance video in the nearby area. additionally, PSU or professional standards asked if there was any video that Ms. Luna was able to locate. And there was not. And then also, I went to the location to look at those external cameras on the building, and I didn't see them either. But then why didn't they drug test the other driver or get any blood work records from the hospital? So, and this kind of goes back to the probable cause, writing for a warrant or asking for consent. So if there were signs of impairment and there was probable cause to make an arrest for intoxication or DUI, then if consent was denied, then they could submit for a warrant. And then even if an arrest was made, the courts could go back under court order and gather the medical records from the hospital. But because there's no probable cause to make an arrest at the time, they couldn't go that route. Officer Engler interviewed witnesses but changed their statements. Why is that? So upon my review, the only person that Officer Engler spoke to was the driver at the hospital. I didn't see anywhere where he was out on the scene talking to anybody. So a couple of additional questions that were raised was a conflict of interest. It was the police department about ankle monitors and the other driver's father. And we have no ankle monitors at the department that's monitored parole and probation. And when I searched the driver's information in our records management system, the last time he had been contacted was in 2017, and I couldn't figure out who his father even was or a relationship. In the reports that I read with the driver, I didn't ever find the father. But if that is information you guys have, and maybe I missed it in the reports, but you have his information, you can certainly look into that. And then throughout the entire investigation, I just wanted to kind of go through some of the steps. The traffic team supervisor supervises the investigation, and as soon as there is a fatal or serious injury crash, the on-call Marion County District Attorney or Assistant District Attorney is contacted, and they work in tandem with the investigation. And then after those reports are written by the officers, they're reviewed through by supervisors, and that entire case file gets sent to the DA's office for review, whether to make charges or not. And I think that the question comes down to probable cause. And if I can just explain probable cause a little bit, it's more likely than not the crime occurred. So it's kind of, if you tip the scales, does it tip the scale enough to say, yes, more likely than not, this suspect committed the crime. So that's the standard, which is different than a beyond reasonable doubt standard, which the DA's office looks at for prosecution. But after the cases submitted to the DA's office, they would be the ones that would make the final determination whether charges were going to be filed or not. And correct, no charges were filed. The other notes I wrote down were the PWC. I don't know why the PWC was tonight, but I can certainly look into that.
The what was next, right?
The body worn camera.
So. Thank you, I appreciate it. Before we move on to questioning, Gretchen has a quick announcement about the library just for us.
You bet. Thanks for being at the library while City Hall's being renovated. That's our normal location. You know, you're hearing that the library is closing. I do have a pass if anybody needed to get up through the elevator to the main entrance exit. I can exit people out to that area, or you're welcome to exit out here and then go around the building. And that would be another way in case you parked up in our parking garage.
Once it closes.
Once it closes, yeah, and it closes at 7.
Does that
Yeah, but you're
impact-
welcome to stay past. You're welcome to stay even though it closes. You know, for as long as I'm here, you can be here. And folks are welcome to wait out in this lobby area if you wanted to while the board is in their executive session.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Gretchen.
you're welcome.
Thanks.
And I guess I forgot my last slide. So July 8th, the complaint was administratively closed to the professional standards office. So,
Excellent. Board, we have an opportunity to ask some questions and take out of it. If anyone has questions, please think out. Let you guys, let you guys take the first back.
So what is the body worn camera policy, generally speaking, in terms of sharing it with families who are seeking, let's say, doing an administrative complaint?
yeah. Let me make sure I get this correct. There are certain circumstances where body worn camera is released and not released. So if it involves a juvenile, it wouldn't be released. If the case is still open, I don't know when the request was made for the body worn camera. If the case was still technically open and maybe at the DA's office, it would get denied until it's fully closed. Or maybe there is a waiting for the MD's office for their report. Then it was still open status, it would get denied. So I don't know what the denial was, but yeah. Does that answer the question?
Sure. And it sounds like you're willing to look into that to see what the reason was for the denial.
Yeah.
And then if are you willing to also then, if the denial was, say, because of the request being too early or something like that, be willing to speak to this family and then give them copies of whatever you can, if you can?
Oh, yeah, totally. I would have to make sure that it is still releasable and it'd have to get redacted. And there's a process for that, but generally speaking, there is also fees related to it. But I would have to check into that as well and see what that would look like.
So I'm aware that there are like traffic cameras on traffic poles all throughout Kubler. And I think specifically there's one at Battle Creek and Kubler. Was any of the traffic camera data reviewed to determine the driving of either the deceased or the Mercedes prior to the accident? Like leading into the accident, was any of that video traffic camera data reviewed?
Yeah, so the specifically related to the traffic camera leading prior to the crash, I'm not sure, but there was Ms. Linda did bring it to the attention of the investigators that there was a in-car video on Mr. Luna's vehicle in his rearview mirror. So that was reviewed that was after the crash, I believe that they got that. It might have been-
We'll take a quick break.
I
Thank you for your patience.
Services for salvage. Please visit again.
Maybe one more step to stop.
Cerrar en 5 minutos. Me gustaría tomar los seriales prestados, por favor, diríjase al
But no, you'll have to see what you like.
para las instrucciones de autoservicio. Visítenos nuevamente durante nuestro horario regular.
Yeah, so that was reviewed of Mr. Luna's vehicle. The traffic cam specifically at Kubler and Battle Creek, because I asked that same question, I was curious about it. And the traffic team supervisor, it doesn't sound like it was working at the time. And so the way the traffic cameras are set up, there's several cameras at a lot of the different intersections. Some of those cameras are just for monitoring traffic. My understanding is some of them are city-owned cameras that actually do record. And at the time, at the Kubler and Battle Creek camera, that was not recording. And then since then, they've been adding more cameras down Kubler. I think now there's one at Kubler and 27th, or I think there's one down there now that's recording. The Kubler and Battle Creek camera is actually now recording. So yeah.
Do you know which officer reviewed the dash cam video from the? Sullivan.
So
report from an Officer Bennett. that
That's what I
mentions
was
it.
gonna say,
Is it
but I
Nathan
wanted to
Bennett?
make sure that it was Officer Bennett that reviewed that.
What was, and so I see that as well in the documents that the family gave us. It looks like Officer Bennett states he reviewed that.
Yeah.
What was Officer Bennett's role in this investigation?
He was the one that went around and canvassed the area for other cameras.
Oh, actually, do I have?
Yeah, that's
About the cameras. Um, when you reached out to the different businesses, did they mention they had been contacted before? But did you look into the discrepancy between the businesses saying that they had not been contacted, Miss Luna contacted?
Yeah, I didn't actually go into each business and contact them. I was looking at the exterior cameras. And even talking to like who's working there. It's 2 years ago. I don't know if they would realize that they recognize. I mean, yeah, I just didn't see any exterior cameras, so yeah, that's why I didn't go in and ask those questions specifically.
Did you do anything to look into the accusation that the police documented requesting the camera footage, but didn't actually reach out to other than reading the reports that they had requested it?
Yeah, when I read the reports, it was that they checked the area for cameras. I didn't see anything specifically that they went in and spoke to individual people. Because it was at the time of the crash, it was middle of the night, but you know.
Scott, did you have a question? Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify the understanding between probable cause and obviously the more higher standard beyond a reasonable doubt. So the officers involved investigating, is their purpose obviously just to determine potential probable cause to pursue an arrest of some sort, and then that information will be sent to the DA, or is it first get this information together, whether probable cause exists or not, provided to the DA and make that decision in concert with the DA?
Yeah, that's a good question because I asked the same question with how this relates with probable cause, and that's when I learned about the DA's office is contacted immediately when there's a fatal crash or serious injury crash, and they do work in concert. And when I was talking to the traffic team supervisor, he did explain there has been a few times where they've immediately arrested somebody for a traffic crime, but most of the times they gather the entire investigation, send it to the DA's office for review, and then make the charging determination at that point. And that I can understand probably has something to do a little bit with
The library is now closed. Please check your items out at the nearest service desk or self-checkout. Please visit again during the regular business hours. Thank you. Buenas tardes, la biblioteca ha cerrado. Por favor, lleve sus materiales al escritorio de servicio o a las estaciones de autoservicio. Visítenos nuevamente durante nuestro horario regular. Gracias.
the grand jury. So if it's a felony crime, it has to go through grand jury before they can actually proceed forward to the process.
Just from my perspective, who is ultimately responsible for determining the probable cause?
Ultimately responsible, it would be up to the officer's investigation if they develop probable cause.
Okay.
Ultimately, it would be the DA's office to determine if they were going to file charges.
Is the district attorney's office a part of the state police department?
No, they are separate. It's Marion County District Attorney's Office because it occurred in Marion County.
There were some conversations about what probable cause would look like for drug testing.
Mhm.
What are other types of things that you look for probable cause for in a crash like this beyond drug impairment?
Oh, like the reckless driving. If there was when I look at this as a completely independent investigator in this, I have to weigh evidence a little bit different. If I have a independent witness that doesn't know who the other driver is, that is completely independent, their statements I weigh a little bit heavier than, say, somebody, a passenger in a vehicle. So the independent witness that said they were going 50 miles an hour, and then the statement by the driver saying 50 miles an hour, that weighs pretty heavy. And as an independent investigator, looking at whether there's probable cause for reckless driving or not.
So reckless driving is one of the type. Is there anything else that you would look for other than things like reckless driving or impairment?
Criminal wise, there's all sorts of just different negligency type crimes. Reckless endangerment may fit. I'd have to go and review it based on the investigation. Yeah.
Based on your understanding of probable cause, what would probable cause for something like that look like for the different things that you discussed a moment ago?
More likely than not that crime was committed. So they put a number to it. 51% was the number they generally put to it. So does it tip that scale or not?
And so here, just as you mentioned earlier, said that there was like an independent witness that said they were going 50, 55. There's also an independent witness that said they were going 70, 75. And the Mercedes driver essentially corroborated both statements, but at different times. So,
I guess I'm not tracking.
well, I guess
Yeah.
it wasn't, was there
The
evidence that,
second witness was across the street on Battle Creek facing north. I believe they're at the stop sign or early stoplight. Is that the corroborating one?
or who was the,
Innovative music.
yeah, and so then you're saying she
Yeah,
wasn't
I
pacing
see.
the other vehicle?
Yeah, when I reviewed it, she was stopped at the stoplight facing north, or no, she was facing south on Battle Creek at Kubler, and she was the one that the driver said is that excited utterance that he was going 75 to 79.
And that's the only example of him saying that? Or
And he
that-
said the
that's-
officers did that. He told the officers that too.
Okay, so then you have essentially corroborated statements of him saying he was going in the 70s, and him telling Officer Engler, and then the independent driver saying you're going in the 50s. So how do you think that they didn't get probable cause for reckless driving if it's kind of in the 50s or the 70s?
Discrepancy.
And I'm
Okay, so
Unfortunately, we'll have the board ask questions. I'm sorry.
So to answer your question with there's two people saying 50, there's two people saying 79.
Yeah, so like
how
say-
does that equal out the scale?
Yeah, because it sounded like Rochelle, just to use the names from these reports, Rochelle said 50s pacing the guy,
Mhm.
and the guy told Officer Engler at the hospital that he was in the 50s, right on body cam.
Yeah.
And then we have Miss Music saying 70s, and then also the Mercedes driver saying 70s
You can.
Yeah.
on scene. So then now you have kind of like,
Yeah, so when I would look at that, I would see that the second witness that wasn't pacing, that's where the other driver told me, this is how fast I was going. He told me, so that's not her own independent, I guess, what she independently saw or experienced. So he's telling her that. Versus the other witness, it said, yeah, we were 2 to 3 car lengths ahead of him, or he was 2 to 3 car lengths ahead of me. And it was maintained that, so no other pace.
and so because of the, are you saying because of the pacing that in the investigation was given more credibility because of the statement about pacing?
That's what I saw in the investigation.
I just want to take a moment to introduce Kelly Rouse, another board member joining us together.
And you've been listening on the phone.
I was.
Yeah, you were listening on the Zoom, so you're caught up.
Few more questions, yeah, on that or thought or
I don't think I have any more questions on that topic. All right.
I do have a quick question.
please.
I'm curious, we've been talking about the witness statements and the determination of probable cause. To what extent would an officer in an incident like this use previous experience or knowledge of seeing a crash or it being at the scene of a different crash to help in the determination if a crime or probable cause exists to further that? Because to my point, my one question is I noticed a lot of observations from the officers about the crash, and is that part of their determination of probable cause?
Yeah, it is, and the crash reconstructionist is a extensive process to become a crash reconstructionist. So there's a lot of math involved, a lot of training involved. The department has 3, I believe, crash reconstructionists. And then also the drug recognition expert, because one of my questions was, okay, what makes them an expert in recognizing drugs? So I asked that question, and for the DRE, it's 132-hour basic classroom certification. That includes 12 evaluations of drugs and people. And that certification is good for 2 years. That also includes a written exam. That's like they estimate takes usually 10 or 8 to 10 hours to do the written exam. And then there's also follow-up recertification requirements to maintain that certification. So yeah, there's a lot of observations and experience that will go into that.
Was a crash reconstruction expert part of this investigation?
Yes. Yeah, the supervisor is, and then they have 2 other ones.
Can you tell me more about who the traffic team is and what the difference between the traffic team and
Yeah.
other officers maybe?
Yeah, so they are the ones on the motorcycles, and they are specifically trained, and policy requires them to respond to serious physical injury crashes and or fatal crashes because they are much more highly trained than the average officer on the street. So in their primary, I guess, focus is enforcement, but then also the investigations.
I want to step back to a question I was asking earlier about probable cause. We talked about the 51-50.
Mm.
What I want to know is what type of things would add on that side of probable cause on the scale in these type of operations and these type of incidents?
It's a totality of the circumstances.
But what would an officer be looking, or what would you look for if you were there on the scene to develop them?
for like drugs or alcohol.
Drugs, alcohol, or reckless driving? So the thing that we talked about earlier
Yeah,
that this could have been.
Yeah, what evidence supports that crime? Is there evidence of intoxication? Is there evidence of drug use? Is there evidence of the reckless driving? Is there I mean, you would look at I know they looked for skid marks. There was no skid marks, but
Yeah, what type of things would be evidence of that? Like skid marks.
yeah, skid marks. I know the crash reconstructionists, if there are skid marks, they can measure the distance of the skid marks and come up with a pretty close estimate of the actual speed of the crash and the force of the crash. But in this case, there is no skid marks. And I don't know if that's because it was wet out, but I do believe that the driver said he thought he might have stepped on the gas instead of hit the brake when he recognized when he saw the car pulling in front of him. But he did say he tried to swerve out of the way. But those would be things I would be looking at. Yeah.
Thank you.
I do, and it is in here perhaps, but I don't recall where. What was the determined cause of the crash?
The determined cause of the crash was that Mr. Luna pulled in front of the other driver.
I was going to ask the narratives that we've been given here about the officers on scene and their descriptions of what they saw. Was that all available to the district attorney during the time that they would have been part of the decision making for whether to pursue further charges?
Yeah, they would receive the entire investigative.
And that includes that.
Yeah. And they would get the body worn camera as well, I believe. I can't speak to if they reviewed it, but
right. That
would include all the photos, the scans. They did an aerial scan of this. So the GPS mark all of the debris and significant pieces of evidence, and then they used a drone, I believe, to fly the scan of it.
Who is the lead investigator of this?
I don't know if they assign a lead investigator. I know Officer Bennett kind of wrote the summary report of everything. But I don't know if they actually say, hey, you take lead on this, because it's more of a collaborative approach. With the supervisor overseeing.
What was the timeline between the investigation beginning and the determination that it was not probable cause?
I don't know if that timeline, what that timeline.
Did anyone,
Is the typical time frame like over a year to close an investigation administratively? So it was July 2025. And this was in April 2024.
Yeah, we didn't receive the complaint until July 1st of 2025.
did anyone search the Mercedes after the crash?
I have the question. He denied consent. So again, if there's probable cause for a crime, they could have submitted for a warrant and searched under a warrant. They could have searched searched the black box. But when requested, he denied that consent.
Is the only way to search for that if you do have a warrant, if they don't allow you to search it?
At that point, yeah.
Question, the report you mentioned about from Officer Bennett that includes a summary and a conclusion. Is that report what would have been the essentially the end of their investigation of this whole incident, or how would you phrase that or terms that report?
When I talked to him, he said he just writes it that way as a summary. And so to go back to your question, who the lead is, purely speculation. I would say he was probably more of that lead role because he wrote a summary of the entire events. The other reports that I read were Officer Engler's statement at the hospital, seeing photographs. And so it gets divided up amongst all of them.
So I guess what I'm wanting to ask about that is I see the report itself is dated May 16th. So a full month after the date of the incident. Would that report have been the culmination of the discussions between the officers and the DAs and leading up to that, or was this solely the police officer's report that from there sent to the DA for them to then determine further? Does that make sense?
Yeah, my understanding is there is conversations. I mean, it works in tandem with the DA's office.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a culmination of all those conversations, or once everything, the evidence came in and they looked at all the reconstruction part of it. That's when that was created and then sent to the DA's office. I don't know the timing of that. Right.
One thing I noticed when preparing for this hearing was that the evidence provided to the board was the submission of the complaint and the findings of your team.
Yeah.
What was the thought process between not providing this report or the traffic reconstruction if this is a conversation about the extent of the investigation?
Yeah, part of that was just the confidentiality side of it and the redaction. There's a lot of personal information in there. And then the bylaws, when I was reviewing them, state to the professional standards investigation being provided. So.
Please.
Do you know if Bennett or any others looked at the traffic cams before the intersection, following the path of the Mercedes?
When I asked about the traffic cams, they said they looked at them. I don't know if it was leading up to it. As my understanding, the city has been constantly over the past 2 years adding more and more traffic cams. So what I understood is there wasn't any at that time, but we had quite a few fatals along the way, and that's that dictates where the cameras are placed. So that was my understanding of that. So I don't know if they specifically looked at, if there's a traffic cam at I-5 in Cougar, if they specifically looked at that. I don't know. Or if they are.
I'm just curious, so obviously your specific body within the police department is about complaints against police officers. Is there, and that's the sort of appeal process for citizens, is there a separate, I guess I'm curious, is there a different appeal process if, let's just say it's a different instance where police are called to a scene, they investigate, they find that there's no probable cause, but obviously people involved disagree with it. It doesn't necessarily relate to the officers acting in their official duties, so not like a complaint against an officer in their actions, but just disagrees with the outcome of what the police said. Is there a different appeal process for that? Is there an appeal process with the DA's office for things like that? I guess I'm just curious. I know obviously you have civil court, but more specifically directly through the criminal side, is there a different appeal process?
Yeah, I don't know specifically for the DA's office, in having conversations with them, but what you kind of alluded to, it, there is a civil process. And because the police department, we look at criminal complaints are the criminal side of law, but there is a civil side of law too that would be an option. Yeah.
You mentioned the legal death inspector. Is that an employee of the same police department?
No, I think it's legal medical. There's a term for it. It's the medical examiner's office.
Do they work for
Oregon.
State of Oregon. Thank you.
Is there a typical protocol or policy or inform like family members of death? Because I just see here, it looks like the initial report was closed later on that morning, written by Officer Mead. And so it seemed like the Mercedes driver has, according to the testimony given, his dad contacted, I'm assuming by him or a police officer. I just don't know if there's a protocol to contact family members when someone's deceased.
Yeah. So we typically try to do that in person. So we would send an officer out to the house and do that in person. If it's outside of the city, like maybe in a different state, we would contact another agency to do that. Yeah.
The sales department utilize chaplains for that process at all, or is it primarily just one officer?
We do, that's an option. If the officer chooses to use a chaplain, that is an option.
Was the family contacted in this case by an officer?
I believe they were. I didn't specifically write that on my notes, but I believe I read that somewhere.
I think to follow up on that, I think one of the witnesses said that they were told that they couldn't make calls to family and talk about the accident after they learned that Mr. Miller was deceased. Did you look into that at all?
I don't know if I remember reading that. Sometimes from
I think that was, sorry to interrupt, but I think that was from testimony that was given today, oral testimony that was given today.
Yeah, I didn't see that in anything that I saw.
Okay.
I guess speaking, I know officers will a lot of the times not ask people to make that phone call because they want to go do it in person. So I know that's happening. I don't know for this case though.
Early on in your towards the end of your testimony, there's a list of specific questions that you went through and answered.
Yeah.
Many of those answers were you providing speculation. Was there a reason you weren't able to talk to the people involved and get definite answers on those things?
The medical examiner's office, I looked, I couldn't find the medical examiner's report. Now, talking to the traffic team, they think that the DA's office requested that. But the medical examiner even came out that night. We just may not get that report. So no, I wasn't able to obtain that report.
I have a couple more questions. Don't also love going. What type of training does the the traffic team receive as far as what a thorough and appropriate investigation would be? And what policies do you have surrounding the thoroughness of an investigation before it's closed?
Yeah, I would, the training, I think would become part of that, crash reconstruction training. I'm not a crash reconstructionist, I've never been to that training, I don't know the specifics of it. But then the policy would be that 600 policy of the thorough investigation.
What is your understanding of a thorough investigation?
Um, look under every rock and follow every lead.
In your review of this investigation, did you determine that a thorough investigation was underway by the department?
Yeah.
I want to go back. I asked earlier about the lack of evidence provided to the board. Did you reviewed the bylaws, determined it's the board? That's not what we've seen in the past. Is that did you review those in preparation for this? Will we expect similar evidence moving forward for other reviews?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. And then if you could paraphrase your understanding of what the complaint was for the event, what was your team investigating here?
The thoroughness of the investigation. Was the investigation complete and thorough?
And then what was your finding on that?
That it was.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the board? Or do you guys want a couple seconds to review? All right, thank you. Move my paper point. Thank you, Gavin. I appreciate your time. I want to thank everyone involved in this hearing up to this point. The public portion of this meeting will now be closed, and we're going to go into an executive session where we'll be able to meet and deliberate here. You guys are welcome to stay out in the hallway if you'd like. And we'll re-enter a public session when our executive session is done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one of the times when I really, of all the times I could use, one of them. All right, let me know when we're live too. Are we live and recording? Yes, live. Thank you. Thank you guys for waiting outside. I appreciate your patience for us. I want to be really clear. First off, we'll re-enter our public session of our meeting. Citizen Police Review Board reviewing case 250092 on April 30th. What our board has done is had a conversation about the testimonies we received and the documents we received. And what we will do in a moment is make a vote on our findings for those. The findings will result in a letter that is provided to folks. The findings are non-binding, and so it is our recommendation as a board, but it is not us being able to tell anyone to do any specific things. And the findings are specifically regarding, do we concur with or do we not concur with the findings of the public standards unit or the professional standards unit. So the findings are not about anything that the fault of other drivers. It won't be about any of those type of things that have those repercussions. It'll just be specifically, do we concur, do we not concur with this, and then what are recommendations surrounding it. So we'll head into that vote now. The first thing that I will ask is for our ayes, for those who concur with the findings of the public standard or professional standard unit. If this is either I think that we determined this a close at citizen contact was what we're concurring or not concurring with. Is that correct?
I think you can do it that way.
For
You
this-
can, yeah.
Okay, for those who concur with closing at citizen contact, please say aye. For those who do not, or who, okay, and the nays, nay. The nays for closing it up, nay. So let the record reflect the board unanimously does not concur. One thing that we discussed that we will include in our letter is part of the reasons that we don't concur with this is we don't feel like we've provided enough information from the department to make an adequate assessment of this. And we believe it is the duty of the department to provide this board with the information that we need to make these determinations and make them appropriately. We weren't comfortable making that finding what we're provided today. So you will receive a copy of our letter as a complainant, and that letter will include some of our findings as far as why we made this and what our hopes or what our recommendations are for the department, the city.
Just because I'm a little whatever, can you clarify that you are seeing that she has reason to be feeling the way she does or she doesn't?
So just my understanding of it is that a complaint was made to the police department about the investigation. That complaint went to the professional standards unit, and the professional standards unit dismissed that at citizen contact, which is a informal level rather than going through full investigation and finding that it was or was not dealt properly. Our findings are that we do not concur with that decision, that it was dismissed at public contact or that it was dismissed in this area. We don't find enough evidence to support that.
Okay.
So what I do want to do is just thank you all for being here and for being a part of this meeting. I know that it's I can't imagine what you're going through, and I can't imagine the courage that it takes to be here and to be a part of this process. So what a tragedy, what a loss, and thank you for feeling comfortable sharing that with us and allowing us to have a discussion about it today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate it.
With that, I will go ahead as the board members are and close our session for today.
Do you want to mention the body camera?
Oh, one thing that we will discuss in our findings is a recommendation that they review your request for body cameras and issue a written response to it. We cannot compel that, but we will just formally address that in our request.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, with that, we will close. I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you.